Yufu's crocodile hunt felt visceral, that raw energy of the Han crew contrasting sharply with the wary Li tribe, whose instant assimilation felt both pragmatic and a bit heartbreaking. Watching these tiny, almost divine cats lead the way to a new life was unexpected. Then the scene shifts to the MC's inspection tour, revealing just how much is happening simultaneously. Antelope breeding breakthroughs at Fuma Pass, Rami cultivation in Matian, the sheer ambition of Danshan's brick, city and canal project, and Ruyang flourishing into a proper central hub with its own silk industry. It's dizzying, seeing the MC meticulously plan infrastructure, from sericulture expansion to exploiting newly found cinnabar, even if Yufu doesn't fully grasp its potential yet, highlights the incredible foresight driving everything. The detail, like planning specific rewards for observant herdsmen, makes this empire building feel grounded. And the final pivot back to coal, envisioning carbide lamps, it signals we're truly on the cusp of an industrial leap fueled by these constant, almost accidental discoveries. The scale just keeps expanding exponentially. Yu surveyed Sitong County. Backed by the Great Forest, the buildings here were uniformly constructed from timber. Bricks and tiles were a rarity. It wasn't surprising. Making mud bricks required water. But here there were only a few thread-thin streams feeding into canals, not even qualifying as a proper river. Combined with the mid-mountain terrain, trying to dig a well, you'd be lucky not to dig straight through to the Earth's core. Honestly, given the current level of productivity, this place really wasn't the top choice for building a town. But who could argue with its position on a major transport route? When the town was first established, it was purely for the function of a relay station, so the tribal brothers from the east and west wouldn't run themselves ragged making the trip back and forth. Otherwise, transmitting information just once would take over a week, making management a real headache. Lack of water? A minor issue. The word difficulty simply wasn't in the Han tribe's vocabulary. Most houses in town had wooden walls, only places vulnerable to fire like roofs, heated brick beds, and stoves used bricks, tiles, or stone. Many families simply went up the mountain to gather stones to build their zhao tai, stoves, and pigsties. The main principle was making use of what's readily available, practical, and economical. That's why Sitong County could be built so quickly. Natural materials were abundant, saving so much effort in manufacturing building supplies. This place had another characteristic: warehouses as numerous as rabbit warrens. After all, it was an overland transport hub where goods from all directions were transshipped, incredibly convenient. Local specialties from every county and commandery were shipped here en masse, sorted, and stored in warehouses. For example, if the newly established Weishen County wanted iron farming tools and cloth from Hanyang County, no need to run their legs off going to Hanyang. They could pick up the goods directly in Sitong County. If Hanyang County wanted some animal hides or aquatic products from Luyang County, like lotus leaves for wrapping food or bundles of bamboo goods, same deal, Sitong County's warehouses had them. This way, the specialties from the east and west were circulated effectively. A round trip that used to take half a month could now be done in 6 or 7 days. Logistics efficiency basically took off. Tell me, wasn't building a town here worthwhile? Your main purpose in coming here was to stroll around and see how the common people were faring. If you noticed any inconveniences, you'd offer a few pointers, teaching them how to solve problems using things they had on hand. Next was inspecting the major warehouses. Were the inventories sufficient? How were the fireproofing, waterproofing, and rat prevention measures? Was the dampness excessive? Thieves also had to be guarded against. But honestly, public order in Satong County was currently excellent. There hadn't been a single case of theft of public property. Why? Stealing was pointless. People here purchased goods in bulk by going through the authorities to open the warehouses. If you stole 1 or 2 items, who would buy them? Use them yourself? The Han tribe distributed everything needed. What would you steal them for? Besides, getting caught meant being beaten with the board and thrown in jail. That 5-10 mutual guarantee system, where groups of households were mutually responsible, wasn't just for show. If a neighbor saw something and didn't report it, they'd get into trouble too. No benefit, and the risk was damn high. Only an idiot would engage in such petty thievery. The main reason for coming to Sitong County was simply to check on the construction progress. Supplies. This place had no shortage of supplies. There was no need for you to worry about providing support. After idling around for the better part of the day, you waved your hand, leading your entourage straight towards Weishen County, that new territory adjacent to the Great Marsh Lake, next to Eight Treasures Mountain, and backed by the Great Forest. Weishen County had an impressive large wharf specifically for water transport, connecting with the dozens of Lake Island tribes within the Great Marsh, as well as other tribes along the lakeshore. According to that fellow Yunji's boasting, the total population in that area was a full 50,000, and he was confident he could persuade them all to join the Han tribe. This was the guarantee he'd made when asking you for the position of prefect, though this grand blueprint was still up in the air. Besides the waterway, there was also a land route, a dirt road wide enough for large carts, passing through that pitch-black dark forest. This was the ore transport path discovered by Dashu's tribe in your second year in this world, established to mine copper from Eight Treasures Mountain. His tribe lived in the forest and knew the routes well. Although the path was within the woods, simple maintenance plus the daily pressure from heavy ore carts had made it reasonably passable now, serving as the main artery connecting Weishen County to Satong County. Your trip to Weishen County this time was firstly to see how its development was progressing, and secondly, to check Yunji's progress. If nothing else, he had previously guaranteed to first relocate the 20-odd Lake Island tribes. You didn't know if that had been accomplished yet. You were still waiting to free up those islands to build chemical plants. Leader, you've arrived. Hearing the news, Yunji came running out eagerly to welcome you. Couldn't have been more enthusiastic. You dismounted nimbly from Weishan's back, patting its big wrinkled rump and signaling for it to go frolic by the water on its own. Walking inside with Yunji, you pointed towards the distance. I see those kilns by the lake are still smoking. What are they firing? Ah, those are brick and tile kilns, and there's a pottery kiln too, Yunji introduced animatedly. We have more and more people here, so housing definitely needs to keep up. I just let the brick and tile kilns keep running. We're right by the forest, so firewood is plentiful, and there's no shortage of water and clay either. Even if we don't fire them now, we'll have to when the newcomers arrive. Better to prepare in advance so people can start building houses as soon as they get here. He paused, then added, besides, we can also build a batch of houses first. Leave them empty. Use them to lure people from the outside tribes. As long as they nod yes to joining the Han tribe, the house is theirs. Of course, once they come, they have to follow arrangements and help build houses for those who come later. As for that pottery kiln, he pointed in another direction. With so many people eating, we can't be short on plates and bowls, right? Rely entirely on shipments from Hanyang County. We'd have to wait until Kingdom Come, and it wastes the transport capacity of our oxen and horses. With that effort, we might as well make a few more transport runs, open up a few more acres of land and solve everyone's food problem first. Listening to Yunji ramble on about his grand kiln plans and his own little schemes, you began to understand. To make good on the boasts he'd made earlier, this fellow was really giving it his all. As long as he could get people here, never mind giving away houses, he'd probably even offer wives if he could. It boiled down to one thing. Everything was for recruiting people. Firing more bricks to stockpile is fine, and building houses in advance is okay too, you mused as you walked. But why are you firing so many pots, bowls, and basins? These aren't disposable items. How many can one family use? As long as they don't slip and break them, they could last practically forever. Heh heh. Yunji rubbed his hands, giving a look that said, but you don't understand. I'm firing extra mainly for gifts and for trade, especially with people from the outside tribes. Think about it. If I show up at their door carrying a pile of brand new pottery bowls and basins, They'd at least be too embarrassed to just beat me and throw me out, right? It's a foot in the door, a way to get my face known, make some friends, and then slowly win them over. Besides, he grew more enthusiastic as he spoke. I can also use these pots and jars to trade for their local specialties, like that sweet sorghum stalk, which is perfect for getting more raw materials for our tribe's sugar production. And the brooms and whisk brooms made here from bamboo and sorghum tassels. Other counties in the tribe need these too. Selling them can bring in quite a bit of money. Hearing his business philosophy, you nodded inwardly. You had to admit this fellow was truly clever, a natural-born businessman. Thinking back before he joined the Han tribe, his Ling tribe had done business with you for several years, securing quite a few benefits for his own tribe and secretly learning many things. Later, he was even more audacious, directly using 50,000 people as a bargaining chip to get the position of prefect from you. Good grief, a meteoric rise going from an outsider straight to a high official governing a territory for the Han tribe. You had to know, the current number of prefects in the entire Han tribe could be counted on one hand, and he was one of them. After becoming prefect, Yunji had indeed shown what he was capable of. Setting aside other matters, just the tribes on the Great Marshes Islands were being coaxed over by him one after another. Whether by showering them with houses or tempting them with pots and pans, he was genuinely bringing in the population. That was real ability. Moreover, this fellow had another strength. He was damn good at management and knew how to delegate. Although he himself was quite infatuated with power, otherwise he wouldn't have desperately maneuvered to become prefect. He gave his subordinates quite free rein. After all, he was a newcomer. Even though he had interacted with the Han tribe for over a year and taught himself some spoken and written Chinese, he was still completely in the dark about many specific matters. Didn't understand? If he didn't understand, he didn't blindly interfere. His management philosophy was probably, I just want results. Figure out the process yourself. Tell me what you lack, I'll get it for you. If there are difficulties, I'll handle them, you just go ahead and do it. Who wouldn't like this kind of leader? So, although Yunji was appointed from outside, his prestige among his subordinates was quite high, and he had won people over. Even the ordinary folk spoke highly of him, their prefect lord. His methods reminded you of a bit of business chicken soup you'd heard in your past life. A good boss doesn't need to be an expert in everything. They just need to be a good servant to their employees. Keep the employees happy, and they'll naturally take care of everything for you. This Yunji fellow was truly a self-taught servant leader. For example, Yunji knew absolutely nothing about sugar production, yet his Weishen County happened to open a sugar workshop, and an official one at that. Because he didn't understand, he never interfered or dictated the specific processes of sugar making. However, sugar production was a new industry. Currently, in the entire Han tribe, only Weishen County grew a bit of sweet sorghum. The raw materials were far from sufficient. What to do? Yunji rolled up his sleeves and figured out a way himself. He had the kilns churning out pottery like crazy, then traded it with other tribes for sweet sorghum stalks, managing to scrape together the raw materials and ensure the workshop could operate. As a result, the workshop's efficiency improved, and the workers' bonuses increased. Which worker wouldn't appreciate him, this benefactor official who looked after their livelihoods? Even more ingeniously, he also knew how to leverage the resources at hand. With the traded sorghum stalks and the bamboo cut from the lake islands, he organized the common people to engage in handicrafts, making winnowing baskets and weaving brooms and whisk brooms. Once made, he purchased them uniformly in the name of the government, then resold them to other counties within the Han tribe. For money, adding another source of income for the people under his governance. This drive was quite reminiscent of a leader guiding the community towards prosperity. Which common person wouldn't support a local official like this, one who could seek benefits for them and lead everyone towards prosperity? Looking at the energetic Yunji before you, a greater sense of anticipation grew in your heart. Does the Han tribe need a dedicated arsenal? Nonsense, of course it does. In the past, producing weapons and equipment was done haphazardly, scattered across various locations. There was no choice. Currently, the only place capable of large-scale steel manufacturing was the established metallurgy workshop in Hanyang City. Hey, don't look down on Hanyang City just because it's not large and doesn't have that many people. At the very least, it's the cradle of our Han tribe, and its facilities are developed to a degree that other new cities can't even compare to. Besides, think about it. Once the coking plant is built, won't steel production just shoot up? Previously, using charcoal, straining with all our might, it took 2 months at best to get a furnace of molten iron. With coke, it's different. As long as there's enough coke, a single furnace can churn out several tons of pig iron a day. Add to that the open hearth top-blowing steel-making method you've been pondering. Hey. Then the worry won't be having no iron to use, but what to do with so much iron. It's foreseeable that before long, following the explosive growth in steel production, gleaming iron gadgets will find their way into ordinary homes. We already have iron pots. Our iron stoves, iron kettles, iron plates, and iron basins far behind. Especially those big iron kettles. For the brothers on the grasslands, they're practically an indispensable tool for home and travel, possibly even more important than pots. Think about it. They rely on milk from cows, sheep, and horses for every meal. Heating milk in an iron kettle is incredibly convenient. Militarily, the uses are even greater. Weapons, armor, they all need upgrading. Right now, our Han tribe still wears crude leather armor, mainly because iron is scarce. Trying to outfit everyone in full metal armor is a case of being willing, but lacking the resources. But once there's enough steel, the situation will change. We'll absolutely have the capability to clad all soldiers in gleaming iron plating. When the time comes, the stamping presses will go clang, clang, and sheets of small steel scales will cascade down. If made in a style like mountain pattern armor, even the effort of lacing the scales together would be saved. Just use snap fasteners to click them together, quick, sturdy, and no worries about the cords wearing out. And helmets, face masks directly stamped out in one piece. Equipping every man with an iron turtle shell will no longer be a dream. While you were delighting in visions of a happy life in the Steel Age, over in the Lu tribe's camp downstream on the Liuyang River, Feather and Jing Yan weren't idle either. Jing Yan was leading the men he brought, working intensely with the Lu tribe's people to build a wharf. At the same time, he began setting up a logistics camp for the survey teams, laying the groundwork for subsequent operations. Feather was even less able to sit still, leading several dozen men, guided by Lu tribesmen, deep into the mountain forests northeast of the tribe, scratching around everywhere searching for that black lightweight stone you mentioned. Another dusk fell, and Feather's group began setting up camp. They had ventured quite far into the mountains and could no longer return to the temporary riverside camp. Otherwise, just traveling back and forth would waste a whole day. This was a newly discovered mining site, right at the foot of a mountain. The guide said he had seen that black stone here before. Feather immediately led his men over. They spent the day test digging here and felt the place looked promising, mainly because the terrain was relatively flat, unlike the previous few spots which were difficult to traverse, making it easier to transport the mined ore out later. This point was crucial. As night descended, the group set up pots and stoves, lighting fires for cooking. Sparks were struck from flint and steel, igniting gathered dry firewood. Once the fire was burning brightly, someone casually tossed in a few lumps of coal dug up just today. Soon the black stones began to crackle and burn too, and without much choking smoke. The smell wasn't unpleasant either. It seemed they had hit the jackpot. This was decent smokeless coal, unlike the stuff they dug up a few days ago elsewhere, which billowed thick smoke the moment it hit the fire. The smell stinging eyes to tears and making people nauseous. "Captain, the stones here burn really well. Much longer than firewood, and not like the ones we dug the other day, where the smoke could choke you to death," a team member said excitedly while adding more coal. What's there to fear about a little smoke? Feather replied without looking up, shoveling food from his bowl, casually scolding. It's all being hauled back for iron smelting anyway, not for you to burn in your home stove. Needless worrying. Heh. The team member scratched his head. I was just wondering, when will every household in our Han tribe be able to burn this good stone? Then we wouldn't have to go out chopping firewood every day. It's so tiring. Just stock up on this stone at home, so much easier. Hey, are you stupid or what? Another veteran team member couldn't help but interject. Burning is burning. If you don't chop wood, you have to come here and dig coal. You have to work either way. If you ask me, mining is way more tiring than chopping wood. If the leader hadn't said this stuff burns hot and makes iron smelting easier, I'd be the first to object to coming all this way to dig these black lumps. He paused, then added, besides, iron smelting already uses so much, and you're thinking about letting all the tribe's people use it? Isn't that ridiculous? I bet even the leader wouldn't dare think that. No matter how many people our Han tribe has, we'll never dig enough coal for everyone to burn. Taking advantage of the rare meal break, the team members squatted on the ground, holding large bowls, eating and chatting animatedly. That's not necessarily true. Feather put down his bowl and wiped his mouth. Don't forget what kind of person our leader is. If the coal we dig really allows us to smelt a lot more iron, maybe the leader will get happy and use the iron to whip up some amazing new tools. If the new tools are really that awesome, maybe, just maybe, there will come a day when every tribesperson can burn coal. Captain, I heard you and our leader came from the same tribe originally. Tell us about the leader's past. A team member scooted closer, eyes shining. Yeah, Captain. I heard the Han tribe started with less than 100 people, and the leader built it up single-handedly to what it is today. How did he do it? Tell us about the Han tribe's early days. Hearing Feather willing to talk, several team members immediately perked up, begging him to tell the legendary stories of the leader and the early Han tribe. This was especially true for those who had joined later. They had only heard the name but didn't know the details. They only knew the leader was incredibly capable, inventing many things, but knew little about how the Han tribe grew from a tiny group. Instantly, everyone pricked up their ears, full of curiosity about these old stories. All right, then I'll tell you about it. Feather cleared his throat, a look of reminiscence in his eyes. Back then, when our leader wasn't even an adult yet, our entire Han tribe, adults and children combined, numbered less than 100, all crammed into that old cave north of Hanyang city. We were poor then, didn't even have enough animal skins. For everyone. In winter, we often went 2 or 3 days between meals, just toughing it out, until one time, the leader went out and brought back people from the Shu tribe, along with rice seeds, and we started learning to farm. Once Feather started, it was like opening the floodgates. He talked on and on. The team members, however, listened with rapt attention, eyes wide. They found it truly hard to imagine that the now powerful Han tribe had lived so miserably in its early years, even worse off than their own former tribes. Many who joined later couldn't help but think this. As the coal survey team relived the Han tribe's arduous founding history by the campfire, further downstream in the southern waters, Yunji and his group encountered some trouble. They had anchored their large sailboat some distance from the shore and used several small landing boats to get ashore. While distributing the evening meal, the crew cautiously observed the opposite. Riverbank on the other bank was a sizable tribe of savages. At that moment, bonfires blazed, painting half the sky red. Whole roasted deer sizzled and dripped fat over the fires. A crowd of bare-chested savages smeared with paint reveled around the bonfires, their raucous noise clearly audible across the water. They seemed to have just won a battle, dragging up a group of dejected captives. Then they sent out their strongest warriors to engage the captives in one-on-one duels. Bloodshed and screams seemed to be their fixed after-dinner entertainment program. Commander, a young crewman approached Yunji, lowering his voice, asking worriedly, "Those savages on the other bank won't let us get close, and they don't look easy to deal with. There are quite a lot of them, and with just our numbers, It looks like we can't beat them. What should we do? The leader of the savage tribe on the opposite bank was named Zhu, also a formidable figure. It took real skill to pull together a large tribe of over 2,000 people. At this moment, Zhu was busy reassuring his people. He first went door to door, offering condolences to the families of those killed or injured in the recent conflict, distributing all the captured cloth, brown sugar, and white salt among them. It was mainly given to the descendants of the dead. As for the women who had lost their husbands, as long as they could still bear children, new men would soon take them as wives. The tribe didn't allow widows to remain single with children for long. Receiving these fine goods seized from the enemy, the families felt somewhat comforted. It was better than nothing. The worst off were those seriously injured who wouldn't die right away. They writhed in agony but found no release. Many claimed, not to fear death, but faced with the gates of hell. How many could remain unfazed? The heart-wrenching wails of the wounded gradually weakened, and soon they slipped into shock from blood loss. Then they were treated as dead and dragged away to be buried. Yes, even if not quite dead, they were considered dead. This was perhaps for the best, saving them from waking up to continued suffering. The remaining unharmed tribesmen were filled with righteous indignation, clamoring for revenge, beaten on their own territory by outsiders and suffering such heavy losses. They hadn't lost this many people even when surrounding tigers or giant bears in the past. This time, over 20 brothers had fallen. How could they swallow this insult? Some sharp-eyed individuals had already set their sights on the enemy's special weapons that cut through iron like mud. They gathered around Chief Zhu, eyes gleaming, as they stared at the few captured steel sabers, practically drooling with envy. Of course, there were also simple-minded brutes, brandishing their own spears and shouting that the enemy wasn't so formidable. One of them had personally taken down an enemy with a thrown spear. The enemy just had better weapons. If they prepared better defenses next time, they could defeat them just the same. Chief Zhu, however, remained exceptionally calm. The two captured steel sabers were in his hands. Their cold touch and heavy weight made him understand their power better than anyone. Moreover, the enemy wasn't few in number. He had observed from the riverbank earlier, those large rafts floating on the water could each hold at least 100 men, and they all looked like strong adult males. This definitely isn't their entire force, Zhu calculated inwardly. The things they brought, cloth, brown sugar, white salt, couldn't have been made on those rafts. So, they must have their own home base, likely upstream on the great river, because that's the direction they came down from. They can make such powerful weapons and such large wooden rafts. Their tribe must have far more people than ours. If all their men carried these steel sabers, Zhu didn't dare think further. We definitely couldn't win. But just then, a different voice rose from the crowd. Chief, even if we could win, they're just hiding on the other side of the river and won't come out. How can we possibly fight them? Hearing this, everyone turned in unison to look at the opposite bank. Yuye's men were clearly visible, along with the 3 imposing large sailboats and several smaller boats, floating like fortresses on the dire water. Though the river was less than 300 meters wide, in their eyes it seemed like an insurmountable chasm. The savage tribe wasn't entirely without watercraft. They possessed a primitive raft-making technique, building a frame of branches and sticks tying inflated animal bladders underneath to create leather rafts. But these contraptions were hardly reliable. Reaching the other side was barely possible. But the problem was, this stretch of river was home to fierce giant crocodiles. In front of a crocodile, a leather raft was practically a toy, easily flipped, with a single tail swipe. When that happened, everyone on the raft would end up feeding the fish. So, although they knew how to make rafts, they rarely actually took to the water. Over time, their navigation skills naturally hadn't improved much. Looking at the opposite bank, seemingly so close yet so unreachable, many felt a sense of helplessness, sighing at the sight of the river. No matter how capable you were, if you couldn't cross, it was all useless. Chief Zhu stood up from the ground. He wore boots made of cattail fiber. Cattail fiber pants covered his legs, and his bare upper body rippled with knotted muscles, exuding strength. Tucked into his waist was a captured gooseneck saber. The other, lacking a scabbard, was wrapped in animal hide and slung across his back. As for the 2 captured heavy iron crossbow bolts, he hadn't kept them for himself. He stood up, facing his agitated tribesmen, his voice serious and steady. "Stop thinking about it. We can't fight them." Seeing someone about to object, he paused, then continued. "Not because we can't win, but because we can't reach them. They have at least 200 men carrying those powerful weapons. If we want to win, our entire tribe would have to mobilize, but we don't have enough rafts to ferry everyone across the river." He scanned his people, seeing some still unconvinced, and added, "Even if we had that many rafts, our leather rafts aren't as fast as their wooden ones, nor can they carry as many people. By the time we slowly paddle over, they'd have long since disappeared. Moreover, even if we could get across, and even if we could win, how many men would our tribe have left afterward? What use is such a victory?" Zhu's words, each striking home, were like a bucket of cold water poured over everyone. They all fell silent. Yes, the chief was right. This fight simply wasn't worth it. 6 enemies had caused them over 20 casualties. To annihilate the enemy's 200-plus men, what price would they themselves have to pay? Even with thorough preparation to minimize casualties, the reduction would likely be very limited. Furthermore, the enemy had fast rafts, able to come and go as they pleased while they couldn't even give chase. To put it bluntly, the initiative in this fight had never been on their side. Besides, this was Zhu putting it mildly, afraid of demoralizing his tribe. He knew perfectly well in his heart. Although his side currently had more numbers, if a real fight broke out, their chances of winning were almost zero. If the enemy each had a steel saber, what could they use to block them? Getting struck by one of those things, even if it didn't kill instantly, you wouldn't survive 3 days. Then, are we just going to let it go? A burly hunter roared unwillingly. We lost over 20 brothers. Zhu certainly knew his people were simmering with anger. If he didn't give them something to do, didn't avenge the fallen brothers, some would surely challenge his authority. So his eyes darted and a plan formed. Of course we can't just let it go. We can't cross over, but we can lure them over here to fight. He raised his voice, capturing everyone's attention. These next few days, send men to watch them closely. Everyone else, rack your brains and figure out how to block those sharp weapons of theirs. We'll prepare our defenses, then stand on the foe, bank and curse them, humiliate them fiercely. I refuse to believe they can endure it forever. As long as they get angry, they'll surely be unable to resist coming over. And I've noticed, Zhu pointed towards the river, their big rafts can't get close to shore. They can only come ashore in those small rafts. So even if they come over, they can't land everyone at once. When the time comes, while their numbers are small, we'll rush them all at once. We can definitely beat them. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up instantly. Right. The chief's mind is sharp. This is a good plan. As long as we lure them ashore, who wins or loses is really uncertain. The thought of getting revenge and seizing more powerful weapons excited everyone, and they began chattering excitedly, discussing what materials to use for shields and how to set traps. Seeing his tribesmen acting fired up, a barely perceptible bitter smile touched the corner of Chief Zhu's mouth. So you go ahead and prepare. Letting them vent by cursing for a couple of days might be good. Did they really think the enemy would be foolish enough to walk right into their trap? For all he knew, they might just pack up and leave tomorrow. However, events unfolded exactly as Zhu had predicted. Yu and his men had no intention of landing again. Commander, the captain of sailboat number 2 found Yu asking worriedly, judging by the posture of those savages across the river, they're gearing up to wait for us to land again, hoping to hit us hard. What should we do? Are we just going to leave like this? What about our fallen brothers? Leave? How is that possible? A sharp glint flashed in Yu's eyes. We are people of the Han tribe. The leader often says, Those who offend the mighty Han will be punished, no matter how far away. It means whoever dares bully our Han tribe, no matter how far they hide, we must eliminate them. Especially this time, they killed 3 of our brothers and stole our things. His tone was filled with hatred. Then what do we do now? Another captain asked anxiously. They're clearly prepared now, just waiting for us to walk into their trap. Of course we can't go back now. Yu Ye's words trailed off mid-sentence. The people around him stared in disbelief. What was going on? One moment shouting the heroic oath, punished, no matter how far away. The next second seemingly retreating. What did the commander mean? Yu Yi seemed oblivious to their expressions. He casually snapped a dry twig and tossed it into the campfire before him, causing sparks to crackle. His tone was exceptionally calm. Don't forget our mission this time. The leader sent us to survey the hydrology and the terrain along both banks downstream, not specifically to kill people. He pointed towards the weapons on the ships. How many weapons did the leader equip us with in total? Only 30 or 40 sabers altogether, plus 1 mounted crossbow. Not even a single spear. We don't even have shields. Didn't you see what state those 3 brothers were in after being hit by stones? Without shields, are we going to block their stones with our heads? Also, he looked around at the men. Even if we gather all the sabers and send 40 men ashore, I guarantee we could kill 100 or 200 of them. But could our 40 brothers make it back? They'd definitely be surrounded. They have a lot of people. Yu Ye explained his reasoning. But some were muttering inwardly, thinking the commander had lost his nerve and was making excuses. However, those familiar with Yu Yi knew this fellow was no coward. Last year, while trading on the grasslands, he hadn't blinked an eye when ordering killings. He was definitely a ruthless character. Much of the corn and other new crop seeds desperately needed by the tribe had been acquired by him in such ways. Sure enough, Yu Yi continued, his voice icy as he spoke through gritted teeth. Killing 200 or 300 of them and you'd be satisfied? After offending our Han tribe, can we let them off so easily? Would our leader agree? Would the wives and children of those dead brothers agree? A calculating glint shone in his eyes. Remember our mission. Revenge isn't taken like this. We'll first continue downstream, survey this stretch of water thoroughly, and mark it well. When we return, we'll find their northern side, meaning upstream from them, and look for a suitable landing spot. Once we get back to the tribe and report this to the leader. Then we'll ask the leader to send several more large ships, loaded with enough warriors and weapons. We'll attack simultaneously from upstream, downstream, and the water. Surround them and crush them. This time, none of them will escape. I don't want their lives either. A grim smile appeared on Yu Yi's face. Just chop off their toes and enslave them all. Make them minor for us for a lifetime. Farm fields for a lifetime. Haul bricks for a lifetime. Aren't they tough? Aren't they strong? Let's see if I don't work them to death. They killed our people and think they can die easily? No such cheap deal. Hearing this, the men felt a chill run down their spines and couldn't help but shiver. Damn, the commander really is something else. That ruthlessness, this elaborate revenge plan. Compared to the commander, they were still too naive. But thinking about it, the commander was right. Just killing them wasn't satisfying enough. Capturing them as slaves, tormenting them daily. Now that would be truly gratifying. Hehehe. In truth, Yu Yi desperately wanted to charge across right now and chop those bastards on the opposite bank into meat paste. Among the 3 who died, one was his trusted subordinate, and by kinship his own clansman's son, also surnamed Yu. To die so obscurely at the hands of these savages, how could he not be furious? But he knew deep down that now was not the time for impulsive actions. Compared to killing these people, the Han tribe currently needed labor more. The leader had planned so many construction projects, and there was a shortage of manpower everywhere. If he could capture these savages and turn them into slaves who worked for free without wages, the leader would surely be overjoyed. Moreover, Only with this justification could he be confident in persuading the leader to dispatch troops. You had to know. Mobilizing the army burned through money and resources. If a large-scale expedition consumed vast amounts and yielded little benefit, in the end, who would be willing to send out troops, sending so many able-bodied young men to war? With that time and effort, letting them stay in the tribe to produce food and engage in construction could build countless houses and harvest countless crops. Dispatching troops meant not only consumption, but also a loss of productivity. The tribe had only so many people. If they were sent out to fight, there would be no one left to work. The logic was that simple. After hearing Yunji's analysis and plan, everyone nodded, agreeing that the commander's considerations were thorough. This plan not only allowed for vengeance, but also brought tangible benefits to the tribe, maximizing gains. Whether for the sake of the fallen brothers or the future of the tribe, this was the best choice. Thus everyone stopped clamoring to rush over and fight desperately right now. Yunji organized men to gather firewood from the shore and procured some tung oil. They spent a day cremating the bodies of the 3 fallen tribesmen. Finally, the charred ashes were carefully placed into empty jars they had brought. These ashes were to be taken back to their families. Bringing the bodies back whole was impossible. It was summer, and floating on a ship with corpses for days would likely cause an epidemic to spread through the entire crew. Everyone agreed on this. Given the limited conditions, this was the only way. After handling the arrangements on the morning of the 3rd day, amidst a cacophony of curses from the opposite bank, Yunji and his men raised their sails. The 3 large ships, accompanied by the 6 smaller boats, slowly began to move, continuing downstream under the angry yet helpless gaze of the savage tribe on the shore. As for what the savages were screaming themselves hoarse about, the people of the Han tribe expressed, "What are these idiots yelling about? It's all gibberish, can't understand a single word." On the shore, the savage tribe stamped their feet. Frustration. They had painstakingly prepared for 2 days, making shields and digging traps, running to the riverbank every day to hurl insults, only for the enemy to completely ignore them and just leave. How could they get revenge now? How could they seize the weapons? And their chief, Zhu, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It was best not to fight. Even if they could win, his tribe would undoubtedly suffer devastating losses and wouldn't recover for 10 or 20 years. It was better to just let it be. However, what Zhu didn't know was that more than one party now had their eyes on his tribe. You were currently poring over maps, figuring out where to dispatch people to mine the coal you eagerly desired. Far away in the Lu tribe camp, Feather's survey team was also scribbling in notebooks, calculating the manpower and transport needed for coal mining, estimating daily output, preparing to report back to you. And the recently departed Yunji and his group were already scheming how to capture alive their entire tribe. A multi-pronged hunt targeting Zhu's tribe had quietly begun. Yunji's fleet was like an arrow shot without a definite target. Their mission was singular: travel as far as possible within the limited time. As long as they returned before the river froze in winter, it was fine. To put it bluntly, if Yunji had nefarious intentions and sailed away with the fleet, never to return, then they might genuinely never come back. Of course, there was another possibility. They discovered the south had a warm climate like spring. The river didn't freeze at all, and food and drink could be procured locally. In that case, it wasn't impossible for them to stay longer in the south. However, you knew the score. Even if this river was as long as the Yangtze, over 6,000 kilometers, at the speed of a sailboat, they could reach the end in 2 months at most. When that happened, they couldn't possibly be foolish enough to sail these few small, rickety boats directly into the sea, could they? Sooner or later, they'd have to obediently return. Besides, which of the crew members who went out didn't have wives, children, and warm homes waiting for them back in the Han tribe? With the ties of family, you weren't worried they'd forget their roots and refuse to return. As the saying goes, Don't employ those you doubt, and don't doubt those you employ. Although you always acted cautiously, you hadn't reached the point of seeing enemies behind every tree. If you couldn't trust this and couldn't trust that, then you might as well do nothing at all. The savage tribe on the opposite bank waited and waited for several days, but Yunji and his men never returned. To offer themselves up, life ultimately had to go on. The 20-odd people who died quickly became like stones thrown into a lake. Apart from brief ripples, they were gradually forgotten by the people. But the things they left behind constantly tugged at the heartstrings of certain individuals, like the 2 gleaming divine weapons tucked into Chief Ju's waist. Who wouldn't covet such heaven-defying weapons? Thus, undercurrents began to flow, and some people started quietly brewing certain ulterior plans. In the last week of July, you personally took the sailboat Yunji had used for map-making and sailed deep into the Great Marsh. You conducted on-site inspections of the several carefully selected candidate lake islands, and based on the environment you witnessed firsthand, drew several more detailed maps. This was primarily to take back for specific chemical plant planning. Unavoidable, as besides you, who else understood how to lay out such a facility? With the acquisition of first-hand detailed map data, this territorial inspection tour concluded successfully. Without further delay, you led the team directly back to Hanyang City. It was already early August, autumn was setting in, and it was time to return and handle the various affairs of the Han tribe for the latter half of the year. There was a top priority matter in August: school enrollment. This was a 100-year plan concerning the future of the Han tribe. Education was paramount for any nation, and absolutely could not be treated carelessly. Back home, you carefully put away the several crucially important maps. You checked on your 2 wives, both heavily pregnant, distributed the local specialties brought back from Weishen County to them, and spent a whole day being affectionate at home. Early the next morning, you headed straight for the teaching building. The Han tribe's current printing workshop was located here. To promote education without books and teaching materials, wasn't that just nonsense? You familiarly made your way to the top floor of teaching building number 3. As soon as you stepped into the corridor, a unique fragrance of books wafted towards you. That's right, books genuinely had a scent. The printing ink emitted a rather pleasant smell, a mixture of pine resin and grease. With the scaling and mass production of book printing, all 6 large classrooms on the 3rd floor had now been converted into printing workshops. Dozens of workers were busily engaged. The rustling sound of paper turning and the chanting calls of typesetters reciting text aloud filled the air incessantly. Listening to this vibrant activity, you nodded in satisfaction. The people following behind you, yes, that old fellow Niu Wei had tagged along too, gaped in astonishment, eyes wide, incredulously taking in the scene before them. Bai Qi, as the person in charge of the printing workshop, followed closely at your side, reporting on the work progress. Leader, the 2 books you previously assigned, Han Rites and Selected Poems, have temporarily been printed in sufficient quantity, Bai Qi said, pointing to the mountainous stacks of books nearby. Both these books use standard Han characters, Hanzi, and have no illustrations, so typesetting with movable type is relatively fast. Some time ago, we found we were running short of some commonly used metal type pieces, so I applied to supplement them. Now, each of these 2 books has a full 10,000 copies printed. It's definitely enough to supply the new students for our first academic year. Our tribe has nearly 80,000 people now, and it's impossible to enroll a full 10,000 school-age students all at once. You nodded after hearing the report. These were arrangements you had personally made, so Bai Qi naturally knew. The print quantity was set by you, at least 10,000 copies each. This certainly wasn't the final goal, merely to meet the needs of the Han tribe's first batch of compulsory education students. These books would undoubtedly be continuously reprinted in the future. You had also approved the matter of supplementing the metal type. That stuff, lead movable type, was now also one of the materials for the tribe's currency. lead coins. Supplementing the type was equivalent to destroying currency to cast characters. Fortunately, it used lead, so the impact on the total currency supply wasn't too significant. As for the standard Han characters Bai Qi mentioned, that was a term you concocted for differentiation. Traditional Chinese characters were called standard Han characters. The Arabic numerals you introduced were called simplified Han characters, or simply simplified numerals. Otherwise, how would you explain Arabic to these primitive people if you just conjured Arabic numerals out of thin air? Simpler just to call them simplified, straightforward and clear. Leader, seeing you hadn't spoken, Bai Qi pointed to another busy workstation and continued his introduction. We are currently mainly printing elementary mathematics and nature. Progress on these is slower, he explained. The movable type for simplified numerals, Arabic numerals, and those plus, minus, multiply, and divide symbols were also rushed out just a short while ago, and we can finally use them now. But these two books contain numerous tables, geometric figures, and also the illustrations of plants and animals in nature. These all have to be printed using woodblock carvings. Some complex carvings were only finished a few days ago. However, they are all now in use. I am confident that we can definitely complete the printing task you assigned before the end of August. Well done. You watched the workers carefully printing illustrations in the books using wooden blocks. Although their movements were still slightly unfamiliar, they were already quite proficient. You nodded as you spoke. However, this woodblock carving is ultimately not a long-term solution. It's inconvenient to store and easily warps due to moisture. Moreover, wood soaked in ink for a long time gets damaged easily, affecting printing precision. You pondered for a moment, then made a decision. Finish printing this batch first. You can start arranging manpower now to try casting metal printing plates, making metal versions of these figures and illustrations too. Whatever you need, submit a report and I'll approve it. Ah, Bai Qi looked up in surprise. Entire plates of illustrations, also cast into metal printing plates? He found your decision somewhat incredible. How much metal would that consume? You answered affirmatively. Metal printing plates are efficient, durable, and last longer for storage. These books will definitely be printed in large quantities in the future. When the print run is large, the cost naturally gets diluted. You don't need to worry about the cost. Just ensure the printing quality is good. Your tone shifted, becoming serious as you warned. If I later find typos in the books, or printing that's blurry, unclear, or incomplete, I won't let you off easily. Yes, rest assured, leader. Hearing this, Bai Qi immediately straightened his back and puffed out his chest, guaranteeing, every time we start a new edition, I will personally check and proofread, and I patrol the workshop every day. During the final binding stage, if any defective products with problems are found, they will be directly picked out, and the printing team will be asked to reprint them. We have several inspection processes, please rest assured. You're doing quite well. You nodded in satisfaction, then added, however, remember to train your subordinates more. Cultivate a few capable assistants. This printing workshop will definitely need to expand in the future. By then, these current skilled workers will all be master craftsmen, capable of working independently and managing many apprentices. You were affirming Bai Qi's work, while also giving him a warning and adding responsibility. It couldn't be helped. The Han tribe currently lacked talent most acutely, talent in all trades and professions. If manpower couldn't keep up, what would support your increasingly ambitious construction plans and astonishing construction speeds year after year? While you and Bai Qi walked ahead discussing matters, Hong Fu, the vice minister of the court, of state ceremonial responsible for receiving foreign envoys, accompanied Niu Wei and the other members of the Xin tribe delegation following behind, occasionally conversing in low voices. My heavens, is this the printing technique the Han leader promised to teach our Xin tribe? Niu Wei watched the rapidly flipping paper and the constantly imprinted text and images, his mouth agape in shock. This is too Too amazing. It's countless times faster than carving character by character on bamboo slips. That's right, this is it, the accompanying Hong Fu explained opportunely, a hint of pride in his voice. As long as the leader of your Shin tribe agrees to allow our Han tribe delegation to be permanently stationed on Bamboo Island, our leader can quickly send artisans to teach you. Hearing this, Niu Wei couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Of course, he dreamed of having the Han tribe delegation permanently stationed on Bamboo Island. How many tangible benefits would that bring the Sin tribe? Just this printing technique alone could increase the efficiency of knowledge transmission in the tribe 100-fold. It was just sigh. He didn't know if his own stubborn leader would agree to this condition. He had already instructed his most trusted confidant to report back to the leader post-haste. The rest was up to fate. He was too far away now, unable to influence other matters. Although he held the title of elder, how much say did an elder far removed from the tribe's center of power really have? Shaking his head to clear away these troublesome thoughts, Niu Wei quickly became captivated by the printing tools before him. Is this black stuff the ink used for writing? Niu Wei asked curiously, pointing at the viscous ink the workers were using. Well, sort of. Hong Fu thought for a moment, choosing his words carefully. This is ink specifically for printing. Theoretically, it could be used for writing too. However, it's much more expensive than the ink sticks we usually mix with water, unaffordable for ordinary people. This is specially made oil-based ink. The production cost is higher, but it yields excellent results for printing, clear characters that don't fade easily. Then, will the Han tribe also teach us the method for making this ink? A flicker of hope appeared in Niu Wei's eyes. We can teach you. Our leader personally promised this before. Hong Fu nodded, then changed the subject. However, you know, the condition. Our Han tribe delegation must be permanently stationed in the Shin tribe, and, honestly, even if we taught you the formula, you might not be able to use it over there, he explained. Mainly, we don't know if your Bamboo Island has the necessary materials to make this ink. Many ingredients in it are extracted from specific trees. If you don't have those trees on your island, then you'll have to find another way. Either purchase the ready-made finished ink directly from our Han tribe, or you'll have to use materials available locally, figure out substitutes yourself, and redevelop an ink suitable for you. Actually, Hong Fu added, I don't know much about printing, but I know a little. This special ink is primarily used with metal movable type and metal printing plates. If your tribe doesn't have enough metal to make type and plates, you could just use woodblock carving directly. That doesn't picky about ink. Whether it's water-based ink or oil-based ink, both can be used. In that case, even if you can't make this kind of ink, it wouldn't be a big deal. Hearing Hong Fu's honest explanation, Niu Wei let out a long breath, feeling much more reassured. Indeed, Hong Fu was speaking the truth. Even if the Han tribe was willing to teach everything, if their own island lacked the corresponding raw materials, it would be like trying to make bricks without straw. It was just like the ironware the Han tribe prided itself on. Through observation and inquiries during this period, Niu Wei had become very clear that iron was indeed a special metal distinct from the gold, silver, and copper, the three metals his tribe was familiar with. Smelting it was extremely difficult, but its performance was indeed much stronger, making it more suitable for tools and weapons. However, the crucial issue now wasn't how to acquire iron smelting and forging techniques, but rather, did Bamboo Island, where their Shin tribe resided, actually have iron ore? If there wasn't even ore, then what use was learning the entire set of techniques?